So why do they eat their own eggs? This is what we'll talk about today. Salamanders are a type of amphibian that lives both on land and in water. They come in a variety of shapes and sizes, from the tiny red spotted purple salamander to the giant Chinese salamander. She won't eat all of them, just the ones that aren't fertilized, and that's to stop a fight. Salamanders are generally solitary creatures. They only come together to mate. In some cases, it's to protect the rest of the eggs from infection. Well, it is not like we sat down and watched a bunch of salamanders lay eggs and then eat them. They wanted to see if salamanders would eat their own eggs if they were genetically modified to not produce any eggs. You'll know that they're just ignorant about the amazing creatures that eat their own eggs. Alright, folks, that's all for this week. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. And as always, thanks for watching. And guess what? They did. This tells us that eating your own eggs isn't just a behavior, it's genetic. The salamanders are programmed to do it, even if they don't have any eggs to eat. But why? Why would evolution select for this behavior? Well, the answer might lie in the fact that salamanders live in a harsh world. They're constantly being hunted by predators and they have to deal with all sorts of environmental stressors. It might seem like a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing. When organisms are under constant stress, they evolve to be more resilient. This means they're better at surviving and reproducing, which is why salamanders that eat their own eggs are more successful at producing offspring. In the end, this behavior isn't just weird, it's actually pretty brilliant. Salamanders have figured out a way to survive in some of the harshest environments on Earth, and eating their own eggs is just one part of that strategy. We didn't. We got there by observing salamanders in the wild and in labs. We've seen salamanders eating their eggs in the wild. We've also seen them doing it in labs. In one study, researchers at the University of Kentucky raised a group of salamanders in the lab. They wanted to see what would happen if the salamanders were exposed to different levels of stress. They found that the stressed salamanders were more likely to eat their own eggs. Another study was conducted by researchers at the University of Michigan. They wanted to see if salamanders would eat their own eggs if they were given a choice. To do this, they gave the salamanders two sets of eggs. One set that was theirs and one set that didn't belong to them. The salamanders had free rein to eat whichever eggs they wanted. And guess what? They chose their own eggs. All this evidence tells us that salamanders do indeed eat their own eggs. But it doesn't tell us why. Why would they do such a thing? In other cases, it's to save energy or to ensure that only the strongest offspring survive. Whatever the reason, it's a fascinating behavior that we're still learning about. It's important to remember that these salamanders are wild animals. They don't feel emotions the way humans do. When a female eats her own eggs, it's not because she's angry or upset. It's because she's following her instincts. She's doing what she has to do to protect her eggs and her species. In the grand scheme of things, it's really not that weird. So when a female is guarding her eggs, she's usually alone. But sometimes a male will try to sneak in and fertilize her eggs. If this happens, the male could end up being trapped with the female and her eggs. And since the male doesn't want to be stuck there, he'll start eating the eggs to make the clutch smaller and easier to escape. The female, of course, doesn't want her eggs to be eaten, so she'll start eating them too. In the end, both the male and the female will eat the eggs, but the female will probably eat more. This might seem like a wasteful way to get rid of your eggs, but it's actually a good thing. By eating the eggs, the female and male are recycling the nutrients inside them. This means that when they're done guarding the eggs, they'll be in better shape to find new eggs to fertilize or to lay themselves. Overall, this is a good thing for the species because it ensures that the parents are in good shape when it is time to make more salamanders. How does she know which ones are fertilized and which ones aren't? Well, it turns out that fertilized eggs look and feel slightly different from unfertilized ones. So the female is able to sort them out and eat the unfertilized ones. Why would she do this? Why would any animal eat its own eggs? As it turns out, there are several reasons. The first reason is to clean up the clutch. Eating the unfertilized eggs gets rid of potential sources of infection. Unfertilized eggs can rot and become a breeding ground for fungus and bacteria. And if these pathogens get into the water or onto other eggs, they could kill them. By eating the unfertilized eggs, the female is essentially cleaning house, making sure the environment is safe for the rest of the eggs. The second reason is to save energy. Producing eggs takes a lot of energy. Each egg contains a little bit of yolk, which the female has to produce and then surround with egg whites and a shell. All of this requires energy, and the female will try to get as much of that energy back as she can. That's why she eats the unfertilized eggs. By doing so, she gets a little bit of that energy back, which she can then use to guard the rest of the eggs. The third reason is to ensure that only healthy offspring survive. Not all eggs will develop into healthy salamanders. Some will be eaten by predators, while others will simply rot. By eating the unfertilized eggs, the female is ensuring that only the strongest salamanders survive. This might sound cruel, but it's actually a good thing. Only the healthiest salamanders will survive to lay their own eggs and continue the species. One of the most well-known species is the axolotl, which is famous for its ability to regenerate limbs. But despite their differences, all salamanders share one thing in common: they all lay eggs at some point in their lives. The process of egg laying, also called oviposition, is a delicate one. It's a finely tuned dance between hormones, environmental cues, and internal development. For most animals, this process happens without a hitch. But for some species of salamander, it can be a messy affair. You see, when a female salamander is ready to lay her eggs, she needs to find a safe place to do so. Usually she'll head to a pond or stream where she can lay her eggs in the water. Once they're laid, the eggs are surrounded by a jelly-like substance that helps protect them from predators and desiccates. Then she'll usually move away, leaving her eggs to develop on their own. Some species of salamander, however, don't abandon their eggs. Instead, they stay with them until they hatch. This is what the Ambystomatidae family does, a group of salamanders that includes the mole salamanders, tiger salamanders, and axolotls. The females will guard their eggs for several weeks, making sure nothing eats them. In some cases, the male will help guard the eggs too, taking shifts with the female so she can rest. And while it's hard to know exactly what's going on in the mind of a salamander, it's clear that this behavior is driven by instinct. These salamanders are programmed to stay with their eggs until they hatch, and they'll do whatever it takes to make sure the eggs stay safe. This brings us to the weird part of the story. Sometimes the female will eat her own eggs, but there's another reason why the female might eat her own eggs. These are just some of the reasons why the female might eat her own eggs. Now, you might be wondering, how do we know that salamanders eat their own eggs? Well, the answer lies in their genes. Researchers at the University of Michigan conducted another experiment. So the next time you hear someone say that salamanders are weird, just laugh.